I just look back at all of the emails that we had sent, right? And how many people actually were part of it, and how many people actually opened it, how many people read it, how many people, and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, this feels like something important. This feels like not something that I can just, let go, I guess, in that sense. Like, it just felt like really it's too bad if this just shut down and
Yeah.
wasn't a thing anymore.
So, one question I had for you was, what was it about The Villager when we first took over the magazine itself? What was it that piqued your interest?
I think it was a bunch of little things. Like, I don't know if I can actually narrow it down to one thing, but when I started working with Ellen and bringing the magazine from where it was before the pandemic, which was only print, and then bringing it online, it I started kind of following it a little bit more closely because I was just doing, like, every month I would send out the emails, and every month I would look at the magazine and stuff like that. I started following a little bit more closely, and I could just feel or see the value of it. Like, it was something that was talking about the community. I would look at the event section. I would, as I was glancing through the magazine, I was like, oh, that's really neat. Like, I didn't know that, or something like that. Right. And it just kept me connected to the community. It kept me connected in that way. And when Ellen actually sent out the last uh, official issue, right, that was talking that she was shutting it down, which I think caught everyone by surprise, myself included. I just look back at all of the emails that we had sent, right, and how many people actually were part of it, and how many people actually opened it, how many people read it, how many people, and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, this feels like something important. This feels like not something that I can just, let go, I guess, in that sense. Like, it just felt like really it's too bad if this just shut down and
Yeah.
wasn't a thing anymore, right? Especially, this came especially because we kept seeing, right, all of the newspapers, all of the magazines just slowly go down one after another.
Yeah.
And I don't know, for me, it felt like this is the last, or one of the last, like, pieces of old world marketing. I don't know. Like, I don't know how to exactly say it, but like this old world thing, right? That felt like it was vitally important. Like, it felt it was something like, I'd like to keep this going if I can, if I, you know. So yeah, that's just sort of how
Mm-hmm.
it started.
Yep. Did you have any nervousness when we were first initially talking about taking it over, or was it more, I'm not sure how to phrase it, but I guess, were you more gung ho about it and threw caution to the wind, or was there any trepidation? Was
Oh
there?
no, I was very nervous. Like, it's it's something that we've never done before. Both you and I don't
Mhm.
have a background in publishing or newspapers, or
Writing or
so it's something that really we had to learn, and we're still learning, right? Even to this day, we're learning every single month, every single issue, with how can we come up and show up the best way possible, right? But Ellen was really helpful in the first couple months, and in the transition of everything, to kind of put my mind at ease, because I was almost like the main point of
Mhm.
contact for between Ellen and us. So a lot of these questions, or a lot of this nervousness, always kept coming back to Ellen, and she was always saying, like, it's okay. Like, it almost she was telling me that it has almost more to do with the care that you put into it, like the heart that you put into it, more than it has to be technically proficient or it has to be, something like that. So I felt like that rang very true for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I always like to put a lot of care into everything that I do, and with my business and stuff like that. So that made me feel better, right? And but yeah, the first issue that we sent out, and it happened like extremely quickly, right?
Yeah.
We didn't really have that much time. We had the training that Ellen was giving us, but we were just deers in headlights, didn't know what we were going to do, didn't know how to put it together, all these kinds of things. But we got it done, and we actually kept the month going. I don't know exactly what month we started. I think it was June or July.
I feel like we pulled it together in something ridiculous like 2 weeks. Our first issue came together in a ridiculously short amount of time. And
Yeah, for us that didn't know very much, and
yeah,
everything took like twice as long
yeah,
as it should be,
yeah.
right?
And finding people to be part of it. And we were very thankful that we had kind of a team in place already
Yeah,
that could help kind of step into that world, which was a lifesaver.
yeah.
So I think that's not to be forgotten because those people, shout out to Marlene, but lifesavers to help get us through that first step, I think. And Ellen, of course,
That's true.
like
Like
you
we
mentioned.
did rely a lot on people that knew more about us, uh, about yeah, they just knew more about
Mhm.
magazines. They knew more about how to put it together than us, right? And
Yeah.
so we heavily relied on them, and I think it went fairly well. And we actually kept a lot of the changes or a lot of the little things that we figured out on that first issue kind of
Yeah.
going as well.
Yeah. A lot of it.
Yeah. So tell me we've why have you kept it, kept going, the magazine?
It's, I agree with you. There's something about it, and I don't know if it's the community aspect. I don't know if it's just the enjoyment of us working together on something because
Mhm.
we've always worked apart. Um, the first few months were very chaotic and difficult to try and figure out how to
Yeah.
work together. And I feel like that extended for most of maybe the first half
Hmm.
of our adventure over the last year with the magazine. Um, but I think you always talk about potential in pretty much everything that you do. And I think that's always in the back of my mind. And it's always, I can see the potential with the magazine for what it can be. And I'm not just talking about like profit driven potential, but just the connection that we could have with the community, with the people that live here, with the businesses that help support us, with the contributors that write for, I can see what this can be. And it can be this amazing, just this group project that's just full of support and I don't know, love and happiness. And, I feel like we need more of that. And so I can see
Yeah,
where it can go.
exactly.
And then also I can see improvement in how we work together and where that can go as well. So we're getting better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I do think you hit the nail on the head there. I consider myself an idealist, if you will. I
Mhm.
always see the potential. I always see try to see the positive, but I always see where it could be, right? Something is never just, oh, it's unimportant, or, something exists for a reason, right? And for me, that is exactly what you said, is exactly what would be like the best outcome possible, is that if the villager almost becomes almost like a community project, right?
Yeah.
Something that people are coming in together and people are talking and, creating this thing that we're all just proud of having, that we're all proud of just sharing, that we're all proud of just being a part of, right? Creating something that feels like the community. I've always talked about, and it was in our first few issues as I was trying to figure out how to maneuver all of that. But that understanding of what I wanted right out of the magazine, which was, I don't know, connection, right? At the end of the day. And I want everybody to feel connected to the magazine. I want not
Mm-hmm.
just ourselves, but anybody that picks up the magazine is like, oh, like this is about here. This feels
Yeah,
like it's
it's
from here.
ours.
It's
Yeah.
ours, right?
I feel like that extends as well the idealist optimism, I don't know, whatever you want to name it, extends to the podcast as well, because that's something we've talked about recently as well, that we want to put our all into this project. We have other jobs. We have many things on the go. We've got 2 kids. We've got extracurricular, very time consuming extracurricular activities.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, with everything that we have on the go, we still want this to be the best it can be, and for us to put our all into it. And if it doesn't go anywhere and the community doesn't want it, that's something different. But to be able to say that we put our hearts into it
Yeah.
and be happy that
We gave it our best shot.
yeah.
We tried our best. This is, from everything that we know, everything that we can accomplish, right? We put everything on the line and just be happy with that, right? Be okay with the fact that this is what we were able to create. And,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it's more about that creation and happiness and less about perfection.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's less about trying to be the best writers, where we don't have a journalism background and we don't, we're not perfect people, and we do have many things that require attention. So we're not always going to be perfect, and we're not always going to be doing the things we would hope we could do, but it's just trying our best and putting our hearts on our sleeve and offering our hearts up through this project to the community.
Yeah,
And we hope
absolutely.
you love it.
Absolutely. So with that said, I think I would like to go into a little bit more into more detail about the stuff that, I guess, the other stuff that takes our attention, right? So what is it that you do outside of the Villager?
Outside of the Villager, I do many things. And this is the answer I give people when they say, "What do you do?" And I go, "Oh, a lot of things." And that's
Do
exactly
you
the tone.
have 20 minutes
Do you
to
have?
spare?
Let me write out a list alphabetically, or I could do it in order of time consumingness.
Yes.
So yes, we mentioned 2 kids. So raising a family, of course, for those parents out there, it's no small feat.
Nope.
It takes a lot of attention. So we've got 2 kids, which I hope are thriving. I know they're thriving. So, it's managing their lives as well. So that's, different extracurriculars for them, school, all of that good stuff. Day job, if you want to call it a day job, I'm a real estate broker. So I have put my heart into my clients the same way that I want to do with the Villager. And that is also time consuming. I'm helping other agents as well in terms of training for different systems. And it sounds boring, but I love it. The legislation and compliance area of real estate. It's a good time. I don't know. I like it. And then for funsies, because I don't have enough on the go, I also participate in local theater within Simcoe County. So I'm usually in the positions that require a lot of work. So that's stage management and producing are the 2 roles I'm falling into the most at the moment. And I work closely with, I'm on the board of directors actually currently with Mariposa Arts Theater.
Oh, that's right.
So there's that. And then on top of the shows that I do with them, and then recently finished the Simcoe County Theater Festival with Theater by the Bay out of Barrie. So that's what I do.
So I know from, obviously, we work together a lot and we are in each other's lives, so I know a lot about you. But you work with real estate or in real estate differently, or you view real estate differently, right? So how do you view that?
So real estate's really interesting, and I feel like, I'm not sure how to phrase it, but I guess when I first got my license, it was about 8 years ago now. So it's been a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I remember walking into one of my first events, like brokerage wide events. So there were just like a ton of agents. It was, I think, like an awards night or something like that. And I remember feeling like, oh my God, I don't belong here. Like, these are not my people. Like, oh, what am I doing? Um, for reference, my background, I've always done theater as an example.
Mm-hmm.
I went to university for theater production. So I've always been in that more eclectic theater space,
Artistic.
artistic
Yeah.
theater space, even though I'm not an actor. I do the behind the scenes stuff. Um, but I remember feeling that way. And I feel like just over the years, in terms of what I was trying to learn and I was trying to better myself in the real estate space, it became very one dimensional in terms of how people view real estate agents. That's almost what is taught and kind of expected in a weird way.
Mm.
Um, and actually, I remember we had just had our son, and it was a few months into that, and I had, I guess, one of my mini meltdowns of not feeling happy and not feeling compelled to do anything. I swear this is going to circle back around. I always have to preface it. Um, and you encouraged me to go back into theater. And that was the first time I had been back in theater in about 15 years since graduating university. And it was so refreshing to step back in that world. But it felt like culture shock coming from the real estate, almost not corporate, but this very rigid way of working and being, where
Mm-hmm.
there was an expectation of where you had to be and income you had to be making and the cars you had to be driving. And there was just this push to make money. And there wasn't a whole lot beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the pressure I felt, or how I interpreted a lot in that space. Going back into the theater world, I realized that there were so many people living outside of that I'd forgotten because I'd been removed from it for so long. And I remember hearing stories of everybody struggling in terms of housing, whether it was trying to find somewhere to live as a rental or not being able to afford buying. And I started re examining real estate from that lens, from that perspective of my peers. Like, they're my age and they can't buy a home. Like, I knew that as a real estate agent, but I don't think it resonated because we were, we're typically taught, when you're looking at more traditional coaching, if people aren't ready or they're not ready to buy, you move on. So you just, like, forget the why, forget the situation people are in. You're working with those that are ready to go, that want to purchase or can purchase, and then forget the rest, kind of thing. um, it's not said in those kind of words, but that's the vibe. um, So I remember seeing that, and then all of a sudden realizing that housing affordability was such a major issue. And again, not that I didn't see it before, but I just realized how large that scope is. And so it sent me down, this is where we're circling back to your question. It sent me down the path of housing affordability. Um, and I am quite passionate about it. And I'm trying to find where I can exist in that space where I can help people. And so I started reaching out to um, the affordable housing coordinator at the city of Aurelia and talking to her about um, the crisis. And I started being invited to different webinars and looking at that lens of real estate, but through housing affordability, and what can we do as a group, as individuals, as a business, as organizations, as government. What do we need to do in order to make housing more affordable? Because the direction we're going, it's not, and it will never be again. We're not going back.
Yeah.
So it's just learning more about that space and coming at real estate from that lens and supporting people and figuring out how to get them a home, as opposed to just kind of snubbing people or only working with those that can afford $1 million homes.
Yeah. Well, that's what it sounds, a lot of people that I guess I hear talk about real estate usually have that same idea,
Mm-hmm.
right? That the real estate agents and in general, that whole industry is just looking for a way to make as much money as possible. And is like, I don't know how to say it, but it's, they are not there for your best interest, I
It's
guess, if you were to call
it's
it that.
public perception as well
Hmm.
that a lot of the general population does believe that that's all agents, which it's not. But at the same time, having been in that space, I can see how that is the perception. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know because you've talked and you've written about housing affordability
Mhm.
in the Villager magazine. You've figured out a bunch of different things that you have been able to help people with and write
Mhm.
about and things like that. How do you currently view the whole housing affordability issue?
Oh, it's a dumpster fire. It's not good. It's bad, bad. Two thumbs down, bad. I'm joking, but it's if you don't joke, you just cry. It's not good, and it's something that affects absolutely everybody. Everybody, like everybody's hit by this. If you don't think you're hit by this, you're hit by this. It. I don't know. It's people in their 30s, again, peers
Hmm.
who have kids or don't, both that can't afford to purchase a home. So they're stuck renting. It's families that are outgrowing their space because they've had more kids, but they can't afford to purchase a larger home. So they're stuck where they're at. It's seniors who are on fixed incomes that can't afford to downsize because their mortgage they're paying right now is either nothing or very small because of how long ago they purchased the home. They can't downsize. They're going to, like, where's their income coming from?
Yeah.
The, they can't move. It's families that can only purchase homes and live together. It's multi-generational living. It's parents and kids and grandkids and aunts and uncles and um, I have a family right now that's looking at a grandparent and a sibling. Like, it's just everybody has to do that now, and everybody you turn to, it's very few people are going to be able to afford to put their parents once they get to a certain age into assisted living, as an example.
Hmm.
um, so I think about, but then nor can we also devalue our homes because a lot of people are live off of, I guess, the equity that they build in their home. And so if you're to devalue it, then people lose their savings or the money they've put into it.
Where a lot of people have always taught us, I guess, that homes are an investment,
Yeah, and I
right?
feel like that is part of the problem. I don't think this is where it gets tough because I do think there is a purpose that makes sense for homes to be investments in a way, but not the way we've done it and not as extreme as it's been done.
Hmm.
Um, it's a tough one, and I think everyone deserves a home. And one thing that I really want to do now is I was chatting with one of the nonprofits in town, but we don't have housing. There's a housing continuum, and there's a picture of it online. You can look it up, and it's just going from, let's say, um, someone who's unhoused or homeless, as a lot of people call it, through to owning a home. We don't have, in Aurelia in particular, transitional housing for a lot of people that are trying to move up and out of the shelters. So those
Right.
that lose their homes and end up unhoused become stuck, and they can't, with the as high as the rents are, they can't get out of that, and it just creates this vicious cycle of devastation, really. But so it's not good.
So
This is super cheery.
yeah, yeah. So let's end it. Let's try to end it on a somewhat positive note. What do you think people should do about it?
I think people can do more than they believe they can. And so I guess tying it partially into what you mentioned in terms of what I've written about previously in The Villager is there are programs out there that want to give you funding. They want you to take their money, and they're either forgivable loans, which means you don't have to pay them back if you commit to a certain time frame, or they're just completely like a grant, which you don't have to pay back. You can look at creating like, let's say, a unit or an apartment or something like that in your home. If you have land, you can create something like a garden suite, and work with different groups of people, with your township, with the county of Simcoe, to create more housing and more opportunities for people to be able to rent. And you can, through these grants, you can create affordable housing price wise for these people so that they're able to afford to live in this, I'll say, like a beautiful space, a nicely renovated space, something that's not run down and unkempt and, I guess, mistreated or not well maintained. And,
Right.
you can create these safe spaces for them. So that's something to look into and worth looking at. And it also helps supplement your mortgage as well. So if that's something that you're struggling with, if, let's say, interest rates have risen and you're feeling a bit of pressure with your mortgage, you can always look at creating that stream of income. Yes, you're looking at it as an investment, but to help facilitate that for
More
you.
housing.
Yeah,
And
more housing, as well as take the pressure off of you as well. So
mhm.
there is hope. It's going to take everybody to help solve the problem.
I think that's a very important point right there, is that for better or for worse, we are in the situation that we are here in Canada, right? So a lot of people just look to the government or look to organizations or whomever to, okay, this is not working,
Yeah.
fix it,
Yeah.
right? But I think we are at the point where, similar to how a community works, right? It's about banding together to create something, to
Yeah.
enact change, to actually move something forward, because it's not going to take just a few people trying to do it all. It's going to take everybody
Yeah.
doing a little bit at a time. And that's what's hopefully going to.
It's a combination of everybody, including federal, provincial, and municipal governments, local community members like all of us, as well as short-term, medium-term, and long-term ideas to
Mhm.
help us get through this housing crisis. So, yay, community.
Yay, community. So that's really interesting. And I'm sure there's would have a lot more questions about housing in general. But I'd like to just kind of go back to another thing that I think you're very passionate about, which is all theater.
Yep.
So tell me about you jumping back into theater.
I don't know what I did. It's just, like I mentioned, there was a return after 15 years, and I jumped in as an assistant stage manager for the festival. This was in 2023, and it was great. Loved it. Met some new friends here in Aurelia and the area. Made some connections in Barrie and surrounding areas. It was fantastic. It brought me back to what I love about theater, bonding with people and creating those deeper connections with people. And then that ended, and I figured, oh, that was nice to kind of do again after a certain amount of time. And I didn't think I was going to get roped in like I did. And I was approached by a friend of mine. There was a couple of vacancies on the board of directors for Mariposa Arts Theater, and they were having their AGM. I believe it was either late August or early September of 2023. And she encouraged me to apply. And I thought, why not? Why not kind of jump into this board and kind of step into more of a local theater world? They meet once a month. How bad can it be? No, it's been great. But what ended up happening was I got roped into all the shows because I got really excited. And I met more new people, which I love to do. And I just kind of ended up roped into like all these different things. And it just, theater didn't end, which was great. And I loved every second of it. I don't regret it. And it's not a negative thing in any way. It was just a lot. It was a lot of time commitment and, with young kids and trying to manage work. At the time I was working out of the house full time, daycare for our little guy, school for my daughter,
Yeah.
blasting home, shove food in everyone's face. What I was feeding you guys, I don't know. And then leaving and going to rehearsal for 2 or 3 hours and coming home at 10 or 11 at night and then back to work the next morning where I'd frantically make everyone's lunches. Again, what was I feeding you? I don't know. And then and then repeat. So it was a lot. And so I was an assistant stage manager again for the play that goes wrong. That was in the fall of 2020. Oh no, the show was February, but we began rehearsing in the fall of 2023.
Right.
Through to February. I then jumped in as a producer for I'll Be Back Before Midnight, which was April of 2024. And again, rehearsal started January. So there was a bit of overlap that was difficult. And a lot of us for that show were doing both shows. So we kind of jumped in right after Play That Goes Wrong finished, and then right into our show for the Simcoe County Theater Festival after I'll Be Back Before Midnight ended, where I was the stage manager for our show. That was Blueberry Pie is the title of it.
Yeah.
So it was an intense year, and then I swore I wasn't going to touch anything for a while because I needed a break. But that's the problem, is you get caught up in those good vibes, and when you've got a good group of people, it's hard to not. And when you meet a good group of people that are as passionate as you are and love what you love, it's hard to tell people no. And that's the issue.
Yeah, totally get it. And for the folks that don't know much about theater, tell me a little bit more about what is a stage manager, what is a producer, like what is it that you do?
So stage managers, arguably, it's their show. So they're in charge of, you ask anybody in theater, they go, oh yeah. But basically the stage manager sits in on every rehearsal. You need to be present. You, as the stage manager, I'll call it like the lead person. You have assistant stage managers that help as well. But the stage manager is taking notes. They're making sure that the actors are where they need to be. They're remembering their lines. They're tracking where any props, anything the actors touch, where they are, what they need. Basically, whatever the director wants, you're trying to facilitate to make it happen. You liaise. You're the liaison between. It's a word.
Sure.
So anyway, you're the go-between between actors and the rehearsal space and the production team. So communicating what you need in rehearsal and for the shows with the production team so that they can make it happen, basically. So as an example, if there is a set piece that someone needs to jump on, that needs to be communicated to the person who's building it so they know that it has to sustain an actor jumping on it every night,
that weight and
there needs to be support or whatever it is, so there are many more things that a stage manager does. That's kind of in the rehearsal period. And then once you're into, we call it tech, you're bringing in lights and sound and you move into the stage in the big space. You're in charge of coordinating all of that, making sure it all comes together. And then for the shows, you're calling the show is what they refer to it as. And you're making sure the light cues are going off when they need to. The sound cues are happening when they should. Again, the actors are where they need to be. And you're making notes. It's constant notes and making sure everybody is staying on point so you maintain, I guess, the integrity of the show through the course of the run.
So it sounds like it's kind of like a project manager.
Kind of, yeah.
So what's the difference between, because you mentioned that there's a director as well, which I know there are because, it shows up on the social media and stuff like that. What's the difference between a director and a stage manager?
This is purely my definition of it, so I may miss some points. I'll just preface it that way. For me, the director is in charge of the creative vision. So they come in, they have this idea in their head that they want to create. The stage manager is more, I'll equate it to like a business partner.
Okay.
So it's kind of like the director's the ideas person and the stage manager has to figure out how to communicate that in a way that'll make it happen.
To the rest of the team. To the rest of the... Yeah. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. And then at a certain point, the director steps out because once you're done rehearsals and you start doing your shows, the director's job is done. It's then the stage manager who's in charge. And like I said, maintains the integrity of the show. So if actors are starting to meander and get a little creative with their choices. It's the stage manager's job to try and keep everybody in check.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how does someone get into theater?
Honestly, approach your local community theater. Let them know you're interested. And truly don't take no for an answer. But but don't be afraid to continually put your name forward and really voice that you're interested if this is something you're passionate about, because sometimes these shows are the production teams sometimes are planned almost a year in advance. So if you're not chosen, it may not be because you're not qualified. It's just that the teams are already in place and too many people, it's too many cooks in the kitchen. So
Right.
sometimes you have to wait it out, which isn't ideal, but figure out if there's a way to shadow somebody. I'm interested in costumes and making costumes. Can I meet with your costumes person and learn how to do that? Or
Do you do this through, because I know when people are looking, when shows, right, are looking to get started and stuff, they need to go through casting and they go through auditions and stuff like that. Is that when you approach people? Like, how do you just go to the auditions and be like, hey, I don't want to be an actor, but I want to be something, a part of this play? Like, I don't know how that works.
I think it's different for every theater company. Every company operates in their own way. So I've seen where the production team is chosen well ahead of time, and then the casting for the actors is almost done as one of the last things. So there's that.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it where sometimes the casting happens and you're still trying to pull together a production team. You're still trying to figure it out. It's community theater. It happens. So yeah, I lost track of what your question was, but
So when do you go and do this? Because
oh yeah,
like I said, there's auditions and stuff like that. But is that when
yeah,
you?
by the time auditions happen, I think if you're looking to act, that's exactly when you would submit your name.
Yeah.
More often than not, theater companies will have a call go out on their social media for who they're looking for. So I would say to follow any theater companies that you would want to work with. It's also who you know in a way. If you happen to know someone who's involved and you approach them, which is how I went in. I have a friend and I realized I saw a picture of her on social media with a headset on and I went, oh, that looks like a theater headset. And then I took her out to lunch and the rest is history. So it's just like sometimes that's
That's
how
how
it
you get in.
goes. Yeah.
Interesting.
You just go talk to people.
Yeah.
So if you know somebody in theater or you mention, oh, I've always wanted to be in a musical. Okay, like come on, come and audition, come and hang out. And I think that's what a lot of theater companies want, is that sense of community and to bring people in, especially faces that they don't work with all the time. That's super exciting. So don't be afraid if you're new. It's intimidating, but a lot of us are new. So
And it's good to know that there are other things that you can actually be a part of. It's not just acting, right? Because a lot of people, as soon as they say, be part of theater or whatever, I think people assume that it's acting, right? But there's costumes,
there's a lot:
lighting, there's
costumes, props, set design, there's lighting design, there's we typically work with venues that have their own technicians, so we don't hang the lights and we're not part of that kind of technical setting up of
mm-hmm.
speakers, and that's all done by the venue, and they have the people that look after all the cables and where the lights hang, and so we don't touch any of that typically. But we do bring in lighting designers, and we do need, if you're interested in designing sound for a show or doing the music and you want to compose some music, I've worked with shows that do that. So the opportunities honestly are endless.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And like you said, right, theater is a mini community within our broader
Mm-hmm.
location. So it's fun to be part of it. Same with sports, same with like all these little things that you can just be a part of, these groups, these things that you can join to feel more connected with people. I
Absolutely.
guess, right?
Yeah. I did want to switch because I feel like I've been talking a lot about myself. So I want to switch to you.
Sure.
What do you do?
So apart from the villager, I am like, I guess my day job, similar to you, is marketing. So I feel like we both have a very similar experience, you through real estate and me
Mm-hmm.
through marketing, because I do think that a lot of marketing gets, let's call it a bad reputation, right? In that sense, overall as an industry, because there's a lot of people out there that just put up a website and say, I'm a marketer, come buy my stuff. And you don't know any better. Like, it's hard to discern from somebody that actually knows what they're talking about or somebody knows what they're doing versus people that just want to make a quick buck in that sense, right? So it's a very easy entry, if you will, to say that you're a marketer, because you could be like, oh, I do social media, or oh, I send
Mm-hmm.
emails, or something like that. I'm an influencer. So like you just kind of get into that concept, and it provides sort of a bad reputation where a lot of businesses are either scared or they're very careful when it comes to choosing who their agency is or who their marketers are that they want to work with, because they've either been burned in the past or they know someone that's been burned in the past. Like, it's a very common story, if you will, in that sense. So since I've had my business, I have tried to actually try and change that concept in the industry a little bit to make it feel like this is, or teach people in general, this is what you're looking for. This is how you do. Like, I do a lot of presentations, I do a lot of webinars or things like that in marketing through other companies and whatnot. So it's more about learning and teaching people this is what you should be figuring things out. And this is how you should be figuring out your marketing so that you can actually grow in the way that you're thinking of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people make the wrong assumption, if you will, that in order for your business to grow in general, right, that means that you need to be everywhere, right? You need to
Mm-hmm.
be spend all of your money on being in 20 different places and have all of your social media accounts open, and you have to post every day, and just things like that, right? So changing that mentality into something that is actually going to help you, right?
And how do you view marketing differently than, let's say, what's typically seen in the industry?
Or what people typically know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the way that I view marketing, and I call my style of marketing ethical marketing in that sense, because I like to work in the fact that there are people on the other side of the screen, right? This is something that a lot of people kind of forget about or don't realize, right? Because it's such an easy thing on the internet to just pretend that you're just speaking or you're just texting, and it doesn't matter, right? It's not a big deal because who's going to see it? Like, I don't know this person, right? So it doesn't matter. But the reality is that there is someone across every single screen that may see your comments or may see your website, may see your, stuff like that. So it's, how do you be more human to other people, right? That's how I view marketing, because a lot of people, or I guess the industry of marketing, from my point of view, have slowly been shifting from what marketing is and should be to selling in that mentality, right? Because businesses are always looking to grow, and, all the power to them. That's what they want to do. It's great. But the way that they are approaching it is like, okay, so instead of doing marketing, which I'll get to in a little bit, but instead of doing marketing, let's push more sales, because more sales equals more growth in that sense, right? So a lot of marketing has started shifting from that point of view into more of a sales mentality, where marketing equals, how can I put this in front? How can I put this product in front of people as fast as possible, right? And as loud as possible, so that many people are not going to like it. Many people are not going to buy it, but maybe 10 out of the 10,000 people that I reach will. And that is counted as a win, right?
Is that Is there a trade-off with that, do you feel, or is that at the expense of something else, that mentality?
Well, I think the trade-off is that the more you try to push sales, right? Or your product, or you see it all the time where people are saying like, come buy my stuff, like we are the best in the business, or we do whatever, and then they tell you what the product is, and then they tell you 9.99, or like 5.69, whatever that number is. And while that's great for people that are looking to buy and people that are doing the research or know and are ready to go for it right now, right? Most people aren't. There's a statistic that I believe Dean Jackson did, right, as part of his study that I was looking at. And he was saying that 85% of people are not ready to buy right away at any point in time, right? It's only 15% of people are ready at any point in time to buy. 85%, the other 85%, right, will purchase something that they're interested in, right, within that time frame, within 2 years. So think about that for a second, right? You are pushing to get results and get immediate sales right at this second, right? You're only ever really, if you follow that logic, you're only ever going to hit, or you're ever going to convert at most 15% of the entire audience, right? But if you actually change your mentality from selling into nurturing and building relationships, right, with these people, within 2 years, you have a potential of reaching 85% of that entire audience, if you will, right? Because at some point they are going to buy. Mm-hmm. That is the essence of what I think marketing is. And the trade-off for the standard sales mentality, if you will, within marketing is that you don't get to build trust. You don't get to build a relationship with people, right? That's what marketing is. And I guess in the older days, if you were to call it that, that's what I believe marketing was. It was an avenue to get people to not only pay attention, right, but then earn that attention, to actually tell a story that captivates someone and makes them want to know more, makes them want to go and say, you know what, I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to talk to someone. I'm going to, do my research. I'm going to figure something out because there's something special here. There's something important here. I've built this trust. I've built this relationship, even if it's small, even if it's, oh, I trust this brand, right? How more likely are you to actually buy something from a brand that you trust over just random two products that you've never heard of, and you've never, the brands that you have no idea who they are, right?
The first thing I do is reviews. I look up everybody.
Exactly. Because that's what people actually want, is people want to establish a sense of trust first. That's why reviews are so important, even in the digital age right now, right? Because the only way that we think that we can actually get real answers from our questions is through reviews. Because again, from that mentality of sales and stuff like that, we've got grown accustomed to not believe what companies are saying anymore, right? We've grown accustomed to be like, I'm the best in the business. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, good for you. So we actually want to other people's opinion to inform what we are going to do, because I trust a stranger that put a review right under this product more than I trust what the company's telling me. Mm-hmm. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Right? So that's how I like to do marketing in that sense, is I like to connect people online, right? I try to develop, even if it's through advertising or through email or through, that kind of thing. There is always a way to develop a relationship with someone. It's more about the willingness to. It's a different platform. It's a different mechanism. And it's not something that us humans are really used to, right? Because we perform better when it's face-to-face in general, right? It's something that we, since the dawn of time, we know how to do because we see people, right, in face-to-face. Yeah. But online, it becomes a little bit more difficult because we're just not accustomed to it. The internet has only been around for 30 years, right? In the entire history of humanity. So it's just a different medium that you have to get accustomed to. But there is a way to build a relationship that actually increases that level of trust. And when you have that level of trust towards a brand or towards the person that is running the company, sales just kind of come naturally because you developed a relationship with someone.
Mm-hmm. So what do you do then exactly? It's like, how do you help people if I'm looking for marketing help? Because if, that's very much something that I subscribe to in terms
Mm-hmm.
of how you approach marketing, and I would want some of that in my business. So how can you help me?
Yeah. So usually the way that I talk to someone that wants to be a client of mine is I kind of just go through their story. So like it's, what is it that you're looking for? Who are you? Why? Why did you start this business? Things like that. Because I want to figure out that storyline that is going to make sense, right? That storyline that is like, listen, I started, let's say, right, as an example, I started from nothing. I created this business. I have built it with my bare hands. I, talk to everybody. I shake hands with everybody that I meet, and I work hard and I do all of these things. And I created this service that a lot of people seem to like. And I want more people to benefit from this, right? That, as we're talking or as we're whatever, that's the story that ends up converting, right? That's the story that ends up telling me, you know what, there's something there. There's something important. It's something that makes me want to trust you, something that makes me want to, showcase and stuff like that. So that's how I approach the initial level of relationship with clients in that sense, is I try to find what is that story that is going to make me want to work with them, right? And make me want to create a relationship for
Mm-hmm.
them, right, through the internet. And from that, we basically then just start thinking about it. So, what is it that you do? Is it advertising? Is it email? Like, I mainly focus on advertising
Mm-hmm.
to bring people in because it's a much more reliable way to bring traffic in and test, right? Because you are spending more money, but that money is directly translated into traffic that then I can say, test here, test this story and see if it works, or test this image and see if it works. If it doesn't work, then we move and change and stuff like that. So I like advertising in that sense because it's a very real, quantifiable way of testing whether what we're thinking of what we're doing actually works, and then moving and changing it until it works.
Mm-hmm.
Because marketing in general is a lot of guessing, right? Educated guessing, if you will, because you truly never know what's going to work. What works with one business is not going to work with another one, right? Because everybody's audience is different, or the person that is running the business is different, or the way that this business is run is different. So your knowledge or my knowledge is more in tune with just basically what feels right, what feels the best within everything that I know within this business. Let's test that out. Let's do it. And then let's move on. So that's why I like advertising, but we can do the same thing in other areas. Like I mainly focus on advertising and email marketing in that sense. And from that, we just grow the story into something that actually starts netting the results.
Mm-hmm. In terms of advertising, because having been in real estate for so many years, I've tried many different versions of lead generation and advertising. I've seen almost all of it and have never been happy with any of it. So I feel like for quite a few people that maybe dive into these things without having a direction, it feels like a waste of money.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what is it about your way of advertising that feels more genuine and has better results, quite honestly?
Yeah, I think for me, I put a lot of emphasis on empathy. And I know that sounds abstract, but it's the care of the person that is talking or that's sitting when I first try to meet and see if they're going to be a client, right? The care that they have, the story that they have, or the stories that they have informs how much how many stories or what we can actually accomplish. And for me, it's just a translating of that emotion, right? Of that empathy of wanting to help the other side, right? The other person on the screen, help the other person, that this is going to be a good journey. Like, I think of marketing and what I do in advertising as more of a journey, right? I'm taking someone from being a complete stranger to knowing you, to liking you, to trusting you, and then when they are ready, to buy from you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's an entire journey that they are taking, because that kind of journey is how people interact in real life, like in person, right? When you first meet someone, a complete stranger, you're on a first date, or you're meeting, somebody that is a friend of a friend, then you just get to talking. It's like, hey, so who are you, basically, right? Like, what do you do? How's the weather? Like, how, did you see the game last night, or whatever it is, right? You try and find something that connects with someone, right? And then you build that relationship from there, right? You get to like them, you get to know them, you get to eventually, if everything works well, right, you end up being like, you know what, this is a good person. Like, this is someone that I would go out for a beer next time, or I would, have it be as a client or a business partner or whatever, right? And it just grows from there. So I just try to approach advertising in that same manner: is
Mm-hmm.
how do I get a stranger, right? Because everybody on the internet for you is going to be a stranger. How do I get a stranger to go through those steps and get them to
Mm-hmm.
a place where they can generate a level of trust?
So, as I guess somebody who would potentially want to work with you, is it more of like a consult first in that way, like that get to know you stage together, and then you move from there? How do you determine, I guess, what they need? Or do you have predetermined packages? Do you have.
No, that is something that I guess I decided very early on when I first started my business to never have predetermined packages, because I feel like that is a disservice to people. Again, talking about the individuality and unique quality of people, right? Everybody is different. Their businesses are all different. Even if you're in the same industry, they operate differently. You talk differently. You operate differently. So it never made any sense to me to have pre-made packages. So the way that I do is very fluid. So it's exactly that, where we go through a consult, we talk based on how you are talking, that and what you think you need, that informs me, like, okay, so maybe we'll go on this path. Maybe we'll try advertising, or maybe we'll do email marketing. Maybe we need to update your website. Maybe there is something that needs to happen, right? That may or may not be exactly what you thought, what you said you wanted, right? But from my experience, I try to help people. And I ask myself this question every time I'm in a meeting with someone, right, with a new potential client: is, if tomorrow I owned your business, knowing what I know, what would I do?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's taking what you told me, what you said that you think you want, right? And from my perspective, from all the knowledge and everything that I know, is that the right path? Or is there maybe a path that is similar to that, or something that would probably work better, right? And in that sense, so I just kind of give them the options and give them the way to move forward.
That's cool, because then you're not pigeonholed. And that was something I didn't like about kind of the traditional way of doing things in advertising and marketing. Was, here's our package, you get all of it, even though half of it you don't want or you don't need, and you're
But you're
just kind
paying
of,
for
you're
it.
paying for it and you're stuck with it forever. And it's just like, oh, okay, well, I really don't want this, or don't feel like I need it. But maybe there was, which no one ever explained, maybe there was a purpose to it, that it just felt more pushed than more organic, I guess, for
Yeah.
having a reason and being part of a broader idea or a larger picture.
Yeah. So that's kind of the thing that I try to bring into the Villager, circling back into that, is how can I help the businesses, and how can I help the people that are reading the magazine? How can I help them by providing a better experience? And that is something that we talk about a lot, and we are as much time as we can afford to try and make changes happen so that the villager can actually grow and improve, not just for the benefit of everybody in the community, but to make it what we actually want it to be, which is a great journey for someone, whether you're reading it or whether you're advertising in it. It's just a great journey to be a part of. That's what that's what at least I'm aiming to do, right, from my end. And that's kind of what leads us into the podcast, right? Is one of those things that we've talked about that I think would provide a lot of value, not just for advertising purposes or for businesses, but just get to know people, right? At the end of the entire thing, what you and I both seem to really care about is that community, is that connection, is that relationship, and how do we upgrade and get other people to feel connected with everything that is happening around here, everything or everyone that is around here, right? We want the community to be close and tight knit and together and feel like they're a part of something greater, not just by themselves.
100%.
Yeah. So I think that with that thought, let's end the episode, our episode 1 right here. Does that
Works for me.
works for you? Okay, excellent. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.